Hello, and welcome to the Hidden Forces That Shape Your Life. I'm Rita Crevis. I am a teacher and a shaman and owner of Soul Shift Coaching, and I'd like to welcome you to this program. If you find yourself asking these big questions, who am I? What is my purpose? These kinds of things, you are in the right place. And I want you to know that the purpose of this course is not to be able to answer those questions for you, but more so that you can understand how you're built. If you have watched any of the gurus or the spiritual leaders, they'll often tell you that who you are, you cannot define. It's that you are. I am. It's that you are no thing. You're nothing. And in my mind, when I first heard those kinds of concepts, uh, that was too vague, too weird, too beyond me to understand. But I started a path, and even though I am in a different place when it comes to those questions, this was the path that got me there. And so often we're so focused on answering the question, who am I, that we don't realize that sometimes what we need to ask is, who am I not? And it's in shedding who I am not that we get to bloom into who I am. And that is the goal of this course, is to provide a framework for you to understand a little bit of who I am not as well as who I am, so we know where we build off of, what we build from. So we're going to do three things in this video. I'm going to share with you the three hidden forces and how they shape us. There's a very good chance that you are already aware of these three hidden forces, but you may not understand how they come together within our energetic body. And that's what I'm really here to share with you. And then I'm going to share with you right up front the systems that will help you understand these hidden forces. So you're going to see a little bit of who I am not and how to shed that so you can get a little bit of who I am. And we're going to talk about the spiral of growth. And that spiral of growth you can call a map, you can call a path. But the thing with the spiral of growth is you can't jump ahead unless you're somebody like Eckhart Tolle or one of the gurus who, sat on a park bench and they just woke up. I wish that was me, but my path was to walk this path. And I know it was that way so that I could share with you what I learned. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm sharing everything I know. I'm not hiding anything, because I think once you see it, you'll know where to start with your own seeking. All right, so this is kind of what it is. I'm going to talk about how we are built. And there are three forces that create our energetic makeup. And they are a combination of energetic anomalies that we're going to talk about. Remember, I'm a shaman. We're going to talk about the conditioned self, your ego, and we're going to talk about the gene keys. And we're going to talk about them in three different ways because they're like layers that fold on top of each other. And the root one, the gene keys, actually flows up through all the layers. But if you want to peel back to your core essence, you got to start at the top and go down. So, and that's how this video is going to go. So this is the one you probably have all heard of, the hidden force of conditioning. This is the one we know because this is the one that takes us back to our childhood and says, hey, if our parents weren't so effed up, maybe I wouldn't be so effed up. Or if this horrible thing hadn't happened to me, maybe I wouldn't be the way that I am. But I want to peel that back a little bit. The role of conditioning? just a plot twist right up front. You are born already having to overcome bad things, rough things. You came here with lessons that you already wanted to learn. And I will show you what those lessons are in just a few minutes. But those lessons that you came here to learn, uh, I'm going to call them shadow. Now, Carl Jung said that our shadow is anything that we, suppress from ourselves so that we can survive childhood. And he's not wrong. But that goes with the thought then that if we didn't have childhood conditioning, then we would have no problems as adults. And what I've come to learn is no, we came here to learn certain things, and that's what we have to do is we have to learn them. But what conditioning does is that is where it amplifies any fear that we have of not being good enough. Uh, it amplifies the fact that our identity becomes labels and roles that kind of are our personality or persona. So, who's going to show up? Conditioning tells us that if you live this life, then you will be a success. And that is what conditioning does. Ultimately, conditioning rattles us in our youth, and it tells us I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable, and or I don't matter, so I don't boundaries don't work. We wonder why we don't have boundaries, because a lot of us as kids, we couldn't tell our parents no. We couldn't tell them that this is a boundary breaker. Um, and we lose our sense of trusting in ourselves or in the world around us, because either adults let us down or we let them down. And so we learn all these things, and that is the hidden force number one that we have to work through, because this is where our self-esteem is born. And if we don't decondition ourselves and make peace with our childhood conditioning, we will struggle with our self-esteem. And so I guess I just want to lead that there's no great answer for the question, who am I? The closest we're going to come to is to zone in on what lights us up and explore who we are outside of the roles that we play in life. And that means, who am I beyond my role as mother or sister or lover or wife or friend or daughter? Because those are roles. I was a wife until my husband died. So am I not a wife anymore? Technically, no. That's not identity. So when we want to talk about identity and we want to talk about conditioning, these two systems are really going to help you zone in on that. So if you've heard of Caroline Myss, she's the writer of Sacred Contracts. And this is a system that she on built off of and on top of and in her own way on the work of Carl Jung, who was a psychologist who a lot of people have heard of now. But Carl Jung was a psychologist who worked alongside Freud. And he developed this idea that we have this archetypal energy, and that for him, every person was primarily one kind of archetype. Like you were an everyman, or you were a mother, or you were a lover. And Caroline Myss said, no, actually, you've got 12. You have 12 personal archetypes. And these archetypes reflect the gifts that you have brought with you into this world. So, for example, I have the archetype of teacher. Surprise, here I am teaching. I also have the archetype of storyteller, which I didn't even realize I had. It was my husband who said, you're a storyteller. And I thought, I'm not a storyteller. And his eyes got wide. He thought, you've got to be kidding me. So there are parts of us that other people see that we don't. But now that I see it, I can't unsee it. Other archetypes I have are like the hermit is an archetype that I have, and a seeker, among other ones. But with this system of knowing what she calls your sacred contracts or your natal chart, she puts each archetype into one of the astrological houses. And this is why this works. One, as you're born with these, and as you experience conditioning, your very gifts experience conditioning too. And they develop what Carl Jung calls shadow elements, ways that they learn to survive based on what's acceptable. And so when we're doing shadow work with archetypes, we are coming to really peel away some of the shadows that don't serve us, but we also step into our gifts. Now, if I'm not a mother and I'm not a daughter, well, I am a mother, but if that's a role I play, if I play the role of mother, or if I gain my identity from something like my job, because I'm a CEO or a manager or a teacher, when those roles go away, what's left? Your archetypes. I'm a seeker. I will always be a seeker. That energy is ingrained in me. I'm always reading, learning, seeking wisdom and knowledge, either through the path that I walk or through the books that I read. This is a gift that I have. It's a gift that I have that not only leads me through life, but informs some of my other archetypes, like my dilettante, which is like your jack of all trades. This is a part that takes knowledge and wisdom from multiple areas of my life, of the world, of what I read, and puts it together in new ways. This class is, in fact, the product of the work of the seeker and the dilettante. How can I take what I've learned about shadow, about this search for myself, and put it into a framework that it works for me, that might help other people grow and evolve? So that's archetypes. If you want to understand how your archetypes shape you, this is a great system. Because I'll give you an example, because I'm a storyteller. One of the shadow features of the dilettante is that she might know a lot about different subjects, but never feels she knows enough to be considered an expert. That would be one of the ways that I used to look at the way I would approach my crafting. I love to craft, but is it ever sellable? No, I don't know. And I know enough to get me into trouble, but not enough to actually do anything with it. So there's a fear of not being good enough that comes with the dilettante. And in seeing that, that helps you peel back the layers that are true from the layers that are not true. Another system that is really great is called human design. It was designed by Ra Uru Hu. There's a quantum human design now by Karen Curry Parker, but I gravitate toward the Ra Uru Hu version because he explicitly talks about shadow and how it works. And so if you are familiar with shadow, what you will learn from human design is that in these centers, which often correlate with chakras, in these centers, if they are open, which means they have no color in them, that's the part of your life, your world, that you're going to be most vulnerable to conditioning. And if you know that you're working with shadow and you're trying to figure out who I am and who I am not, this system is very good at pinpointing your, I don't want to call them weak spots, but your weak spots. The other thing I really liked about this system when I was learning how to work through my own shadows, which is, I'm telling you, shadow for me is anything that I'm unaware of that's triggering me. If it triggers me, it's a shadow, and I want to figure it out. But with this, my human design reader, she told me that there's a trait for manifesting generators, which is what I am, where if we get into a real flow state, we get into a real flow state, and somebody comes in and interrupts us, interrupts that flow, it can make us go 0 to 60 really fast. And the timing of that knowledge was really impeccable because my husband was fantastic at interrupting my flow state. And because I was doing shadow work and I was so disconcerted, I remember thinking, why is he triggering me? Why is this triggering me? So this particular system, even though it already told me a lot about myself that I already knew, it did give me insight into where I was most subject to conditioning. And for me, that was knowledgeable, knowing about the flow state, because now I was consciously aware of it. And then if he interrupted my flow, I could respond differently. And that was a big part of my journey, was how do I quit reacting and how do I respond? And these two systems together really helped me peel back the layers of my conditioning while still, sorry, I have a visitor, while still learning about how my gifts work. I don't, with clients, very often talk about archetypes. I have workshops every now and again where you can identify them, because you don't need to know your archetypes. But boy, because I know mine, I know my gifts and I know my strengths and I know what lights me up and why, and what doesn't light me up and why. Now, this is the one that comes from the shaman, the hidden for energetic anomalies. I can't stress this enough. These energetic anomalies really do shape how we experience the world. And as long as they're a part of our energy, they can create a real impact on how we show up. So they can shape us, but then what I find is once the energy's gone, so is its impact. And I will give you a story. As a shaman, now I will tell you, I used to roll my eyes at this, and then as I grew and evolved, I learned that there is much more to the world, and shamanism in particular really opened me up to that. But I had a client who came in, and she was very heavy, and she said she wasn't doing very well, and she said, I'm not suicidal, I just something's not right. And so I pulled what's called a legacy cord. It's a kind of ancestral cord, and when we pulled it, it was attached to a woman who had been abandoned because she was special. My guess was that she was special needs, perhaps cognitively impaired, and she felt like she was useless, so she was thrown away. And when I told my client that, we pulled the cord, not only did my client have an immediate, like, feeling of freedom from that heaviness, and it never came back, but she said, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like, what purpose did I serve? Like, I was useless. Once that energy was gone, it didn't mean all her problems went away, but she didn't have this extra heaviness. Now, the thing with the energetic anomalies, there's all kinds. You can have past lives come through and impact how you're experiencing the world, old past lives. You could have energetic attachments. That really happens. That does exist. And if you are depressed and an energy or an entity wants to attach to you, and it does, that can bring you down. And I'm not saying, when I say entity, I don't mean demons. I have yet to meet a demon. Usually they're spirits who are looking for a way to live most of the time. So energetic anomalies are very real. They can have a very real impact on how you experience the world. But once they're pulled, they're gone, and you return to stasis. But when you're doing this work, I cannot express enough. You need to make sure you have a really good healer or shaman or energy worker. There's a lot of people out there who can but shouldn't, or who can't but say they can. And so you really want to find someone who is reputable, knows what they're doing, and can give you, if nothing else, real client testimonials, or clients who would be willing to give you a testimonial and give you a testimonial. And I'll leave it there. It's just I see it. I see it, and a lot of times people will say, "Oh, I had an energy worker, and she kept pulling this cord," and I'm like, "Well, not everybody's supposed to pull a cord. Sometimes you have to defer to spirit." So that's how you work on it. Energy work at all levels, whether you're doing deconditioning or whether you are doing, like, if you've really advanced in your shadow work and you've grown a lot, um, you just want to make sure you have somebody reputable. You can pick up a course to become a shaman on Udemy for $11.99. And if you get somebody who went to Udemy for an $11.99 shaman course, you're going to get an $11.99 shaman. So get the credentials. Get the credentials. And this is the hidden force that threw me for the biggest loop, because I've tried working with this, and it is literally your programmed lessons. It is in your DNA. And the system is the gene keys. This is an offshoot of human design, and Richard Rudd created this system, and it's built off of human design, but it is its own universe. And in the gene keys, he describes 3 programmed features that you are born with. And those program features come as shadow, as gift, and at the highest level, city. I tried working with these when I was still trying to decondition myself, when I was still trying to work through my ego, my persona. And I could only meet the gene keys at the level that I was able. And I'll give you an example. So this is my chart. And if you see, this right here is called a pearl sequence. And you can see I have the same gene key in 3 spots. That gene key is known as codependence. Its gift is sensitivity, and the sacrifice is the city, the highest level. Now, when I first looked at this, I saw codependence and I thought, oh, that was me with my husband. We had a traditional marriage, and he paid the bills, and I did this and I did that. But now I'm not codependent anymore. I know I can take care of myself, and I pay half the bills, and I do what I have to do. I pay my car insurance. And so now I'm not codependent anymore. And I thought I was done. that I had solved the gene key riddle, and now I was sensitive. And then years passed, and I put the gene keys to the side, and my husband died, and I was catapulted into a new state of understanding codependence. It was how I had it was it was it was all the ways that I had still been codependent on my husband, not financially, but maybe for validation, for um, I can't even describe it, emotionally. And I had to do a lot of work around codependence. And then my daughter shunned me. And then I really had to look at codependence. And this is what I learned as somebody who went through the gene keys and as a shaman, because I saw this. The gene keys are programmed into your DNA. I see them when I go in as a golden thread, and they're three threads. There's a city thread, there's a gift thread, and there's a shadow thread. And these three threads are intertwined and encoded in your DNA. And what they do is they act as a magnet, and they start out as shadow. And when I realized that because I had been guided to start working with the gene keys again, I'd been guided to gene key 19, and I understood this karmic thing that was happening with my daughter. And I knew the only way to handle this was to move into sacrifice. Now, I don't mean I became a martyr. I mean, I sacrificed the story of what I thought our relationship was going to be. I had to sacrifice the story for love. That having my daughter in my life, even if it wasn't like this close friendly, my little daughter and best friend, that's not what she wanted or needed. My daughter needed her independence, and she didn't need a friend. She needed a mom. So I had to sacrifice that story. And when I went into work to kind of explore this, I could see how the genes turn off and on. And when you come out of the shadow of codependence, you activate the sensitivity. You actually, just like genes turn off and on depending on environmental conditions, the gene keys start at the shadow level 99% of the time. Sometimes the gift will turn on to help you pull out a shadow. But this particular system is encoded in you. So when I was seeing myself as codependent on my daughter, having to face that shadow, because it's not one that I would have ever in a million years had looked at, because I didn't think I was codependent on her. But I learned that perhaps I was, and that my words are actually coded in that neediness, that I had a cord to her that said, no, don't leave me. I had to let that go. That's the system of the gene keys. It's not personal. I didn't beat myself up, because that is a lesson I came here to learn. I came here to learn what independence looks like for real. And the gene keys, you can work on it at any level. I find that as you grow and evolve, they become easier to understand. It is a sophisticated system, but it will transform your life. The difference, though, here's the thing, is that the spiral of growth, you have to work through the layers. The programming of the gene keys infiltrates, look at it, I love this graphic, infiltrates you at a base level. So these are things you don't beat yourself up about. It's not conditioning. I grew up, my childhood did not make me codependent. I was born with those codependent tendencies. Okay? And that those tendencies impact how we receive the conditioning. And our archetypes also move with the conditioning. And so to do this work, you have to start right here with the triggers. You have to start with your foundation of self-esteem. When you start with self-esteem, you build a foundation that when the world rocks you to the core, like it did me with my husband's death and what I thought was good, I was so worried it was going to become an estranged. She was so angry at me and it came out of the blue. The only reason I was able to move through that was because I didn't take it personally, because I had already done the work. I'd already done the foundational work of self-esteem. And I share how I did that, how I broke the patterns, and all of that in this course, The Art of Understanding Yourself, which if you want to learn more about me or the course, you can use your phone to check out this QR code that'll take you to my website. But this particular course I offer as a standalone, self-paced, really gets you into what I call your core self. And it rebuilds your foundation by looking at triggers and how those triggers shape your self-esteem. But not only that, we look at real live examples of how to shift out of those triggers so that you're not stuck in the pattern and you break it. There's two ways you can do it on a standalone course. And about every 3 or 4 months, I hold a whole new cohort where you can get coaching with it, with me, and we talk about it. But you don't have to. There's a PDF on my website that goes with this, where it has all the resources for where you can find more information on sacred contracts and Caroline Myss, where you can find books and even a human design reader you might like here with human design. And I'm happy to share with you a link for the gene keys and how the gene keys work. You can start right where you are, wherever you are. But I will say, when you shore up your self-esteem and you get to a point where you know you are good enough, you are lovable, you are worthy of boundaries and respect, and you trust yourself, the rest of this journey, it's not always a cakewalk, but it doesn't crumble you because you know who you are and you know who you are not. I hope you found this informative and helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out using the QR code here. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye.